How many people in here have actually dyed fabric before? Just real quick, show of hands. Okay.
Not using red?
No.
Okay.
Let's real quick. Let's start out with, I know most of you in here are first-time dyer or are not really super experienced dyers, so it's probably going to be the most available thing to you. Dyeing, in a nutshell, make sure that your fabric is completely, totally saturated before it goes in your dye. Everybody does pre-wet their fabric, right? Yeah. Certain fabrics, like especially your heavier wools, may require up to 24 hours of soaking before you can dye it. Okay. I've also, since I've been here this weekend, heard all kinds of myths about how I've got to boil the water to get it to dye. I throw water out if I boil it. Yeah, that, to me, hot water, extremely hot water, never boiling, not for regular fabric for me anyway.
Depends on your dye.
Now, I have ruined wool dyeing.
Wool, yeah.
Before.
It has to do with the ionization crap that's on the handout.
Yeah, felting is bad. There was something on the website earlier about I was going to dye a wool suit or something, and someone's like, you've got to boil it. And I was like, I have never personally boiled a suit. I mean, that to me, that sounds more like boiled soup than suit. And there's all kinds of wonderful things inside of a suit that's going to just, explode when you dye it, when you boil it.
They're going, the instructions for acid dyes typically tell you to get to a boil and then set it back to a simmer. But I was able to actually get dye to fix in a double boiler situation where your water temperature never exceeds 195 degrees. So it's kind of in that area. Now on the other hand, if you're using fiber reactive dyes, if you get it over, say, 95 degrees or 105 degrees, depending on your brand you're using, you're actually going to kill your dye, because then the dye is going to start affixing to the water molecules as opposed to your fabric.
So use a thermometer.
And this is so great. It's a real, you really got to hunt it down. $3 at Kroger. Candy thermometer. Clips to the side of your pot, and you just monitor your temperature.
And you want it at about 190?
Depends on which kind of dye you're using.
Yeah, I would never go less than about 150 for the dye.
On an acid dye. Fiber reactive dye over, say, 100 degrees, it's going to be useless. The dye is going to bond to the water, not to your fabric, and you're going to get at best a pastel shade.
Someone had a question in the back?
You're going to have to speak up.
What type of fabric are you using? Unfortunately, it's not that simple. It's chemistry.
Are you wanting to dye existing clothes, or are you buying fabric now? Okay. Now, for home dyeing cons and things like that, Rit will be just fine. Make sure, if you're step-by-step dyeing, find out what you want to dye. Wash it. Make sure if you've worn this before, make sure it's washed, because things like deodorants and stuff like that that's on your armpits will screw dye up. Also, anything like some kinds of perfumes and powders that just kind of stay on the remnants of your collar. Know the fabric content of your whatever it is you're dyeing. If you're dyeing clothing, even if it says 100% cotton and all this is the same, there actually can be, I dyed a shirt one time, and the middle of it was all supposed to be the same fabric, but one sleeve was completely, totally different, and this was like bought off the rack at Sears. This dyed perfectly, this dyed pink.
The thread usually doesn't dye either, because they don't have to tell you the fiber content of the thread.
If you are sewing if it's just regular fabric,
you still have to wash it.
Yeah, wash it before you dye it.
Wash it in a baby detergent, because you need something that doesn't have, the detergent can't have dyes or scents, because that'll mess up your dye too.
Make sure your fabric is still wet. Never try to dye dry fabric. What you want to do is, the water is a conductant for the dye. So if it's already a little wet, it just pulls the dye into the fabric faster. Okay. Something like, if you're not 100% sure of the quality, or if it's a blend, something like a Rit dye probably will be the best thing for you, because it is actually, it's not especially wonderful for anything, because it's made to be pretty good at almost all of it. Okay, Rit dye is still the most popular dye used in every major theater in America, so it's still, it's still a very viable option.
If you want to kick it up a notch, you can get excellent results using more specialized dyes.
But again, most of those specialized dyes are kind of catered to certain fabrics. So if you're going to be general dyeing, it's really going to be in the amount of time that you're going to spend with the dye and how well your mixture is as to what color you're going to get. I'd stay away from washing machine dyeing if you're doing like small amounts of fabric, 2 or 3 yards or less, like a good lobster pot, like a big boiler pot, and you're on a barbecue grill in your backyard's fine. If you can maintain a certain temperature, or if you want to do it in the kitchen, that's great. Anytime that you're working with like a powder rit, you're going to want to wear a dust mask, because anything that's a powder, if it can go airborne, you're going to breathe it in. You're going to breathe it in. I do know people that have been hospitalized for prolonged exposure to rit dye.
Dyes are really dangerous when they're powders.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that one yet.
I don't bother.
I will dye in my kitchen. I just don't like to breathe it in.
The important part is put the dye in like a cup that is your dye. I have like a dye measuring cup. You put the powder in there, add a little bit of water, and then you like mush it around to make a paste. As soon as you add the water, then all the particles aren't airborne anymore. They're in your cup. Plus, if you make a paste with it, then you don't have little chunks of dye, dry dye floating around.
Yeah, you realize you're dyeing about the first time you have that good Technicolor sneeze, and it's just you look at the cloth and it's like 5 different colors of dye just came out of your nose.
Having said that, a few years ago, RIT actually introduced a large line of liquid dyes. So,
Yeah.
The liquid dyes work better.
Liquid?
I'm still indifferent. I mean, liquid. I've had excellent results with both powder and a liquid dye. I like the powder because I really like all those tiny little spoons that come on the measuring things, the dash, the sprinkle, all that kind of stuff. Because there are some times when I will put a tablespoon of dye in, of red in, and really just a dash of green, just to get a color. So I really like working with the spoons more than I do the droplets. That's a personal thing for me, though.
any utensil you use for dyeing should not be reused for food. I'm sorry, you had a question, sir?
This may sound off the wall, but does the type of water matter?
Yes.
Because we've dyed muslin. Unbleached muslin is usually what I use in my shirts. RIT dye. I think I can read directions. It never comes out the color that we want it to come out. I mean, it comes out a cool color.
There are additives in municipal water
Ah.
that can affect things. I just hit Walmart and get the distilled water. It's $1 a gallon.
Okay.
It's worth it for the peace of mind to know that I don't have to go back later and try it again because something in the water has affected.
Yeah, if you look on your sheet, there's something called mordants, which are metals and salts that you add to dyes to change the color. So things in, especially your hard water, like copper, aluminum, other trace metals, they're essentially mordants that you didn't add. So they'll change your colors.
As an example,
Soft water's better, but you can't get everything out. So.
if you're
Also-
using fiber-reactive dye, salt is used to help level out the dye. Basically means it helps it distribute evenly. The trouble is, if you use table salt, the iodine that is frequently added can affect certain pigments, particularly the blues. For that case, just canning and pickling salt has no iodine added. This is what I particularly use. It's pure salt, no mordants that are going to affect your color.
And it's tiny, so it dissolves.